We are live. Hello, everybody. We are back with a live again, and we're here again, like we were before, but this time it's today. So it's nice to see all of you. We missed last week and the week before, maybe even, but we're here this week. So welcome. Um, Today, we are lucky enough to be visiting with Shawn Littlebear. And yeah, that's his last name. He is from the what you've heard, the Cheyenne tribe, or is it a nation? Or I guess it's Chinchistas. Either way is the name. I put it in little parentheses there, guys, so you can see and try to. Yeah, I'm trying to respect and whatnot because that's how they say it. But I think you told the story best. So if you could actually tell the audience and me uh, a little bit of your background and what you feel like sharing today and whatnot, as far as about you, because ultimately we're going to talk about and lead this into Christ-centered conversation. It's kind of where we were thinking to go. So hopefully everybody we can have a good time. Renelle will be here. She had some technical issues. You know how that is a little bit because it happens often for one reason or another. But she is about to jump in here soon, and yeah, and I'll let her in, and we'll have a good conversation. But for now, let's get some background and go from there. Shawn, it's nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to be here. Um, I'm feeling good, and whoever shows up, if they want to ask questions, I'd be willing to answer questions too.
Well, that's good.
Um, my name is Shawn Terry Littlebear. I am full blood Southern Cheyenne from Oklahoma. I was born in a little town called Hammond, Oklahoma, and I spent my younger years um, in an orphanage
Oh
that
wow.
was ran by the Community of Christ Church.
Okay.
And my oldest brother actually went and served a mission. And when he got back, he asked the church if they could come and remove us. And when he came back, the the orphanage said, "No way, we're going to keep him." My older
Did they have
brothers
like
just
incentive?
well, they had gotten like custody, state custody over us. My older brother, my younger brother, and my cousins. And my older brothers had already aged out, except for the one that was just a year older than I was. And they were using us for child labor.
Oh my gosh.
And we were
What year
working
was
on
this?
farms, the mid 60s.
Okay.
They were basically, if you're old enough to work at about 7 years old, they put you to work. They give you a job, and you go to work for them in
Which
their enterprises.
man, there is
So,
a level of good that you can do with kids and putting them in work environments, but that sounds completely different. How I mean, how many hours of work were you doing in a week for them?
well, we would actually work before we would go to school,
Oh,
and then we would come home and work. And that was, if we didn't do it the way they wanted to, if we didn't do things to their liking, they would beat us.
Oh my gosh. Can't
And
even imagine.
when my older brother heard the stories, that's when he got the church involved. And they decided with church lawyers and social workers to come and try to get us out of there.
So we're
So,
talking the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was the church that came in
yes,
and saved, tried to attempt, well, started to save, right?
the Community of Christ Church
Who
is
was
actually
a
the
spin-off. Yeah,
reorganized
the reorganized.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints. So they're not friends at all.
Yeah, no.
So
Yeah.
when the church came
At
in,
least, especially back then.
oh, yeah, they found out that we were not only, like wards of the state of Oklahoma, but because we had federal ID numbers as tribal members, we were wards of the federal system. So, in order for them to take it to court, they would have to make a federal case out of it, literally. So the church
Wow.
did. They
Oh,
said, okay, for the first time, we're gonna do a federal case over these three boys, my older brother, myself, my younger brother. And they said, we're gonna see if we can win. So we went to court in Cheyenne, Oklahoma. There is a town named Cheyenne. That's where the federal district court is. And as little boys, we were told to sit down, be quiet. We were put in dress suits, and they treated us really nice after there was a court case. There was
oh, yeah, especially at the
we,
courthouse, I would imagine.
yeah, we were like, whoa, hey, we get to be treated nice and not be beat and not have to work as much, and it's great.
Yeah,
So
this is the life in the courtroom.
yeah, so the judge from the get-go, he said this is not going to be the Mormons against the reorganized Mormons. He said,
That's
I will
good.
not have that in my court.
Yeah.
And he read up on everything, and then he said, okay, what's your interest in these boys? And it started off, and it kicked off with it being the Mormons against the reorganized Mormons. It turned it right from the very beginning.
So even though he
And
said no, we're not going to do
yeah,
that,
even though he said it's not going to be,
they
it
started to
was
relitigate things
exactly
from
that.
the 1800s.
Yeah. So when it came right down to it, what happened was we had actually been, just watching both sides raise their points of interest. And finally, it came down to we were housed in dormitories. I remember
Okay.
there was 12 other boys in our dorm, and there was 8 of us together in one room.
Oh, wow.
And we had what they call trundle beds. I don't know if you're
I've
old
never
enough
heard
to
of that.
remember.
No.
A trundle bed is a regular bed that has a bed underneath it.
Yeah, but not like a
But
bunk bed.
no, it's not up high like a bunk bed. It's the same height as a regular bed, except the bed that slides out and pops up
Oh,
is is
my grandma
stored
had one of
underneath.
those.
Yeah, it's an old style.
Yeah. You could pop it up. We used to play with that all the time. We'd jump on
Yeah,
it and bounce it up, and then
that's
we
what
get in
we had as
trouble, and then we'd do
beds.
it again.
Oh yeah, and if you get your fingers in the wrong spot, you can get them, smashed pretty
Oh,
good.
I've I experienced a little bit of that myself,
Oh
like
yeah,
with the very serious metal contraptions underneath. And of course, as a kid, you want to get under the bed, you
oh
know.
yeah,
And then I would love getting under the where they store the bed the most. And
yeah.
then anyway, it was I used it like a fort. Anyway, that's my
After a
story. Enough
while,
about me.
we were not allowed to pop those things up.
All
After a
right.
while, we could slide them out, but we had to make the bed there. So, oh, there was all kinds of stuff.
Well, if you didn't, if
Anyway, the state held no oversight over that particular orphanage because it was ran by a church. they just assumed that it would be above board. So they quickly found out, the federal government said, we're going to send people down there.
Yeah.
And we were not allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to speak. We just came in as kids, looking as they went back
Yeah.
and forth. And
And I'm
finally
sure
the
there's
judge,
fear because what would happen if you did speak and then
oh, yeah.
they left? Yeah.
Well, the judge finally came in and said, enough. I want to hear from these kids. Let's find out from the horse's mouth.
That's good.
And that's when they threw in the towel. They said, take them. You can have them.
Really? So
So,
it was when they said, let's have the kids speak, they just, at that moment, threw it in?
yep, they did not want to hear they didn't want to hear a peep out of us.
Well, because it would come back, because that would then become part of the court, and your
Oh,
testimony
yeah.
could be used in other suits, and they'd get in a lot of
I,
trouble.
I remember as little kids, we were only just an hour and a half, 2 hours away
Hmm.
from, where I was born. And my family used to come and bring stuff. And whenever they would bring things, it doesn't matter if it was clothes, toys, whatever, they were confiscated. We got
Yeah,
to
kids
accept
having
them,
fun.
but as soon as they left, everything got taken from us.
Oh wow.
And I remember one time my older brother came in and he told us younger boys, he said, "Hey, you guys can't cry when they leave." Said if you do, then they've already said that they will not let them come back for 6 months.
Oh wow.
So that was hard.
That
You
is
know,
cruel.
I had to bite my tongue a couple of times because they were just bawling buckets leaving us there. And I was like,
And you
my
couldn't very
grandma
well
was,
tell them that you were
yeah,
not crying because you were in fear.
yeah, this is when I was a little kid.
So they were like,
And
he doesn't even care.
we were supposed to be allowed to see them once a month on a Sunday afternoon. And we were lucky if we got to see them every 6 months. Anyone in our family.
Oh wow.
But family would come and leave us stuff and then have to leave. And they couldn't see us.
Was it because you were out working, or they just held you back?
No, that was just their policies. So we we had to go by what they said strictly.
Man, that's serious. That's rough.
Oh yeah. And when you're a little kid, you don't know what's going on. You just know that if you mess up, you get the belt, or you, you get the board, or they
Yeah.
called it the Board of Education.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, you would learn.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Renell. Renell, you pressed the. We can see you perfect, but there's you're muted. So just press the mute button once. I can't unmute you.
Yeah, there she is.
Here she comes, coming down the road. She's gonna. We're all waiting, on the edge of our seats. Yeah, there's the wave. There's a lag to it though. That's weird. So, we still can't hear you, Renell. So, if you could press, there's the little mute button. It won't let me unmute. If you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yay, nay. Well, it wouldn't be alive again if we didn't have technical difficulties. So that is our curse, I think. And I don't know if I believe in curses exactly, but nonetheless, here we are. So we'll see if this clears up. Let's continue the conversation until then. Yeah. So anyway, where were we?
Well, the church got us out,
Okay. Yeah.
and they placed all three of us boys in Jackson County, Missouri.
That's a very
And
interesting place for our religion.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, out there back then, it was a lot of countryside, and it wasn't really developed as much, kind of like it is now.
Yeah.
We were way out in the country at a ranch between a little place, um, Pleasant Hill.
Okay.
I had to, we had to be bused into Pleasant Hill to go to school.
Okay.
We were between there and a little bitty town. It was a little, just a four-way stop, um, called, I think it was Greensburg.
Okay. How close is that
And
to
it's just outside of Lee Summit.
oh, okay. So it's a beautiful country.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
back then, we had to go all the way into Independence to go to church. That was the nearest chapel.
Oh wow.
And guess where the chapel was? Right across the street from the big spire.
From
And the big
from
spire,
the Hershey's Kiss spire? It looks like a
Community of
yeah.
Christ
Yeah,
spire.
the yeah, the spire that looks like
Yeah,
a
the
Hershey's
very
Kiss.
people they rescued us from.
Oh my
Their main
gosh.
complex was right across from our chapel.
Oh, is
Oh,
that did that chapel get torn down and that's where they put the visitor center? Or was it
uh,
still there? I don't know if you've been there in the past
yeah,
10.
I haven't been back in,
Okay,
like 30 years, so I wouldn't
gotcha.
know.
So you're not really aware of the the local outlay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Not now. Back
Yeah.
then, my foster dad said, if you want to go over there, he said, I'll take you boys over there. So we did. We went over there and we saw the Smith family cemetery part. He took us up to Adamon.
Beautiful
Took us
place.
to all the sites.
That
And we had a mobile home that we would take to church because they had the old block style meetings. So we
okay.
would go to sacrament and then we'd have to wait for two sacrament meetings and then we could go to Sunday school.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was before
Yeah,
my time a little bit, but I remember my parents
it was like an all day
talking
thing
about it.
going to church.
Yeah.
So, and he would stay for priesthood. And so he would tell us if, you guys can, um, take naps or whatever in the mobile home. And then
Mm-hmm.
he said afterwards, we'll get a bite on the way home. So we would do that, and it would be like an all day trip to go to church. Kind
But
of interesting.
it sounds to me like it was. I mean, when you compare it to where you came from, it would be like salvation.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful.
Getting
I
food on
don't
the way
mind it
home. I
at all.
mean, yeah. I bet if it was just in the kitchen that you probably got food for the whole first part of your life, just the kitchen there.
Well, the part that I really remember was we weren't allowed to go see movies. Movies were forbidden. And
All
in the
movies.
church, well, for us, yeah,
Okay.
as orphans, we couldn't go see a movie. The biggest thing we saw on the screen was cartoons. They took us to see Charlie Brown, Donald Duck, um, you know, the Roadrunner, that kind of stuff. And then when I got a little older, they said we can see Disney movies.
Ooh.
So I was like, okay, it's. But we would go to special places to see those.
You'd be like,
We,
I feel like I'm a rebel. I'm going into the Disney movie.
Well, afterwards, in fact, the very night we got released, my older brother, um, my sister's car broke down, taking us where we were going to go.
Oh,
So they got a motel room, and she got us a room, and she said, "You boys go and get you something to eat," and gave us some money. And I
what do
looked
I
at my
do with
older brother.
this?
He held the money, and he was like, "What do you want to eat?" And I was like, we were standing there waiting, and my sister came out of her room and was like, "What are you boys waiting for?" And we turned and looked at her, and we were like,
Uh, uh,
permission?
yeah. I,
No one gave us permission to go walk down the street by ourselves,
yeah,
or have money, or go to the store alone.
for real.
That was taboo. That was, we could get so many licks for that. That was just, so we were standing there kind of waiting, and she said, "Go on, go, go, go."
Get.
And I was like,
Get.
freedom. We have freedom.
Oh,
You
that
know,
is,
that was just amazing for us. And we
that's
walked down the
beautiful.
street like, you know,
How old were you when that happened?
I was 11.
Okay. So you have good memories of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we walked down the street. I said, "We can buy anything?" And he looked at us and he was like, "Yeah." My little brother said, "I want a hamburger." I said, "Me too." He said, "Well, let's go get one." We walked over and got a hamburger and came back, and we were like, "Ugh." We were used to hiding things. We
Yeah.
stopped at a store and bought some candy and sodas, and we were on the way back, and we were
Got to
all
stash
looking
it
around.
somewhere.
Yeah, we were like, "Where do we hide it? Where do we hide it?" And he was like, "It's
We got
yours."
contraband, guys.
So it was like we got broke out of prison or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. And that's,
When we
I mean,
went
it's sad.
to when we went to school, they had to tell the people that we were in school with, our kind of situation. And my older brother came to visit, and he said, "I'm bringing you to the Provo area because I'm
Okay.
going to BYU." So he said, "Give it about 6, 8 months here." And then he said, "That'll make sure you're kind of acclimatized to what you need to do." And then he said, "Then I'll bring you out there. We'll get you families."
Yeah. Okay. It would be pretty overwhelming to probably go straight to Provo, even though, I mean, for you, that would be like a huge town.
Well, that's where I ended up.
Yeah. Okay.
My younger brother ended up in Alpine. The brother that was just older than me, he ended up in American Fort,
Okay.
and they got us families to stay with. And the family I was with was the president of the Provo North State.
Okay.
He was the state president, and he had just sent one of his boys off on a mission. He said, "I'm not a foster family, but I've got an extra bedroom." So I came to stay with them, and
That's
they liked
um
me so much. They said, "Stay here. They're looking for
yeah.
you a family, but we kind of want you here." So,
Yeah.
and that was a whole story in itself.
Man, so did you ever like did you stay there?
Yeah, they gave me the choice,
Oh, nice. That's good.
and um, it was the things that happened not to me, but to them, and that was incredible because they said ever since you moved into our house, something has lit up, something has happened. Um, my dad was a teacher at BYU, as a professor
Okay.
in communications. They made him the head of the communications wing at BYU,
Oh, okay.
over all the humanities, over all the languages, over all the music. He had the whole building underneath him, which came with a significant raise. There was a Provo City Council person who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of having an election, my foster mom was their secretary for the council at Provo City, the city
Okay.
council. And everybody just said, let's throw her in there. She knows all the workings. She knows what to do. She knows the ins and outs. So they all took a vote and they voted her in. And she went from making, scruples at that time to a councilman's wage.
Wow. So that all
And
happened
then,
in a very short period of time.
oh, yeah. And
Wow.
then the people got accepted to places they were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my brothers got jobs that were hoping for, and it was like pushing one domino over, and then bing, 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 bing.
Wow.
And they said
God,
it all
see,
happened when you came here.
well, God promises us that, if we step in, serve, He will provide and give freely. Now, that doesn't always mean a free ride, right? But
Oh yeah,
and it's hard. Then we'll get things thrown at us that are crazy. And by the way, Renell, hi. We see your picture, but not. It's kind of frozen, I think, at the end. Yeah, completely. Huh. Okay. Well,
well,
we'll keep trying on the side and get her in hopefully.
yeah. Hopefully she can make it.
Yeah, for real. I'm getting a little worried now if it's whatever it is. Oh,
Can
I see
can she
video.
come in with audio only?
Um,
Is that what she's trying to do? Or
no, right now she's. I can see your video. It's moving again, Renell. I pulled you back in, but it's really slow. Yeah, it's choppy and it's coming through wrong.
we can see you?
Yeah, we can see it just in freeze frames. So freeze frame. Like action. But Renell, we love you, and we really hope you can join. So, yeah, that's crazy. So let's move along and talk. So that's a crazy story. Just and we're not even into your 20s yet. So we've
Oh yeah, that's when I was there. There's certain things that happen on like our side of the family, and they found out about some gifts that were mine. I literally, the old phones with the big long, twirly
oh
cables
yeah, yeah.
that
I
hung
get wrapped
down
up in
way
them, and
on.
they get in knots that you could never
Yeah.
undo. Yeah,
Well, everybody had one in the middle of their house, in the kitchen.
yeah.
And I could walk by that thing and just reach out and say hello without it ringing and start talking to people. And they thought that was weird.
Well, it's a little weird,
And
but
we'd be sitting at the dinner table and I could, stop. Everybody would freeze and I would be like, there's a knock at the door. And they would wait a couple of seconds and then knock, 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 knock. And then, everybody was like, how do you do that?
yeah.
And I was like, it's just something I know is going to happen.
So
So,
as a gift, as you grew, how what
oh, there's people in my
application?
family that had it.
Oh,
So
so
I never questioned it at all. It's just for the first time I realized that the people I was living with and called my family, they had no clue. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't everybody
Yeah,
that can do this.
that's okay. So it was just normal for you up until, 12 or so.
Well, it was something that we were told to hide from the people in the orphanage, but
Mm.
now I didn't have to hide it. I
I
could,
mean,
you know, I could tell people about a deja vu that I had, and I could feel it coming on when it was about to happen.
so how
And
does that manifest, if you don't mind me asking? And we've talked to many people that have gifts that are surprising and not like, everyday people, right? So this is a topic that we have covered before, but this is very interesting. So how does that manifest?
well, it was really strong with the brother that my brother Bruce, that was just older than me. It was really strong with him and me.
Okay.
If we really concentrated, I could get him to call me. Or if he was trying to tell me something and he couldn't get a hold of me, I understood. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be home at this time. Give me a call. And I could just think it. And then I'd go up and wait by the phone. And before it'd ring, I'd pick it up.
Wow.
And
And this was like a connection that you had directly with your brother.
yeah, if we were like in the same room across the room from each other, I could think a thought and kind of throw it at him, and he would answer me back.
Oh wow. That
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Depends upon the people in the room, because a lot of them interfere. They have
there's
too
it's an
much noise
energy
going on.
essentially, right? Thought actually is energy, and so it's like
Yeah.
if you're able to do something like that, and I kid you not, my wife and I have some things that are similar where I just we could be at different places different times, and right when she feels a strong emotion, I will feel it too, and vice
Hmm.
versa. So we know when the other person. So it's just something we discovered over the years, but that could be with somebody that I've lived with for a long time. I don't know if it was developed or it was just something innate, but it sounds to me like it comes down in your family.
Oh yeah, it comes through the bloodline. And
Okay.
I remember one example was my sister. Um, she had There was a knock at the door one Sunday dinner. When everybody gathers around to have Sunday dinner, and we have a big family. So uh, my mom had set the table, and I believe it was a fast Sunday,
Okay.
and we were going to have a big dinner, break the fast.
Okay.
And we all sat down. We had a couple of guests that came over, and we were just having small talk, and we're getting ready for my dad to
Okay.
come back so he could, you know, say the prayer and we could all have dinner. Well, when he got in there, we were having small talk, and my mom put everything on the table, and we were getting ready to eat, and then she sat down, and I put both hands on the table and froze, and everybody looked at me, and they were like, "What's wrong? What's up?" And my brothers knew. They were like, "He's going to tell us something." And so they all looked at me, and I said, "There's a knock at the door." And my sister challenged me across. She sat across from me. She said, "Ha, you can't tell us who it is." And my mom just glared at her like, "Oh, don't do this." And I said, "Yes, I can. It's the bishop, and he wants to speak to our dad." And right then the knock at the door came. And my dad got up, went to the door, and I said, "They're going to go back to the study because it's kind of a private matter." And they both went down the hallway to his study, and my mom slowly stood up with her hands on the table, and she looked at my sister and she said, "Don't you ever challenge his gifts again. And then she turned to me and said, "You need to cool it. You're freaking us out."
I can
And
just
so,
see the there's a mom and she's stressed out, don't want their kids to fight, and
oh yeah. So I told him I'll just, it'll be in the background, but I won't, you know. So it was just part of the gifts, it's part of being the bloodline that I
that's
come from.
that's beautiful. I want to dig a little bit into that, Renell. Um, if you can hear us, can you hear us? Because we can't hear you. There's the mute buttons on, but at least that's what it says. I could just be something's messed up. Maybe you can come in because it doesn't seem like the it's allowing you um, for the video. So let's try just audio only. Shut down the video and try audio. Okay. So anyway, while she's I'm gonna put her backstage for a minute, and then we'll pull her back in. Oh, looks like the mic came on. Okay, can you speak? Can you, Renell? I think your mic's back on. I think your mic's on. So let's see if it works. Okay. Oh, oh goodness. This is embarrassing.
Sounds like one thing or
Not
the
that
other.
embarrassing. Yeah. I was like, ah. Okay, well, your mic actually turned on, but I think that just it's not allowing, or the internet's just going too slow, or something in between there and here. So I don't know what it is. I need to research this now, um, but because we don't want to make people wait. No one wants that. But and we want to see Renell. Dang it. So anyway, these gifts that you experience, I'm sure that carried into adulthood and it's just part of who you are. Is that still the case?
Yes. I, well, the personal gifts are one thing. And I understood that those came from my ancestry through my bloodline. But there was also personal gifts, which I learned to kind of hone and tune into. So
That's
those are
beautiful.
interesting as well.
I and that would be separate. I mean, they could be related. It could be easier to understand your personal gifts based on your other gift. But so let's tell the people on the show. So you were born into a royal line from the Tistanas, Tis-
Chichistas.
Chichistas. Thank you. Sorry,
Yeah.
Chichistas. Um, and so when you were your that's where your blood comes from, and so you actually were in line to become a medicine man. Is that correct?
Hmm. One of my grandfathers was a medicine man.
Okay.
On my mother's side, her mother, and my mother's father was a medicine man.
Okay. So from
And
both sides.
my father's father was a chief.
And so does the chief follow bloodline as well, or
Yes.
it does? So then,
Yeah.
and so does the medicine man position. And
Hmm.
okay, okay, that's and yeah. If you are willing to share more on that, if that could have been the end of the story with it, but you went back and learned about your people later, right, in life, for the most
Um,
part.
kind of about around 20 years old.
Okay, so just later than the
Um,
teenage years.
yeah. And when I came home, I found my one of my grandfathers out at our Hammond Cemetery. His stone was um, a picture of a buffalo on one side, and on the other, the picture of our sacred mountain on the other. So, and I've got a picture of it. I don't have it on this phone.
Ah, so do you
Um,
mind sharing a little bit about what's this sacred mountain?
the
If it's
sacred
too
mountain,
sacred, we don't need to talk about it. But
we call it Bear Butte.
okay,
To us, in our language, it's Noah Wus,
Novus.
and it's the place where our prophet got our covenant
Okay.
uh, for our Chachistas people. So there's a whole long story. It would take a long time to tell it,
We don't. Yeah, we
but
don't need to go down the whole path,
it's
but it's sacred
it's
to you
not
guys.
it's not just us. It's our people in the past. It's our people anciently. I don't know how many things have happened either in, on, or around that mountain, but it goes for a long time, way back in history.
So, and I mean, your
It,
people, the Native Americans in general were originally they they would travel a lot. They were wanderers, right? Am I right in that? At least anciently.
depends on who you're talking about.
Okay.
We
I'm
have a
referring more
story in our
Hopi,
records.
huh?
We have a story in our records where um, we lived in cities, towns, and villages. And at a certain point, there was a prophet that came to us and told us that the star prophecy was about to happen and that we were to knock down our villages, um, get off our farms, and start to live in a tent like our ancestors. So we went from, city and town life to, again, living in a tent and dressing in skins like our ancestors.
Uh,
So when they found us, they just assumed that we were always that way. And it's like, no, we were told by a prophet to go back to this way. And there's some writings about that I got from my great grandmother who passed them down. And she
that's
actually had
fascinating.
someone type them up. So there's a big thick book, um, kind of about the size of a ream of paper,
Oh,
of all of these stories that are written
what I
down.
would give to read that.
I gave a copy of it to my niece in Arizona to keep, um, because my older brother said, you know, some things about her that she's more of a Hebrew bloodline and takes more to that side than we did.
Okay.
So I gave her those stories to keep and that booklet. I told her, if you want to read them, you can. They're hard to understand, but once you get certain puzzle pieces out here in the world, you can start putting them together. And one of the puzzle pieces is our sacred mountain had a name before Noah Wus, before what is known now as Bear Butte. It had a name that came out of the Book of Mormon. In the Book of Ether, it's called Mount Zerin.
And that's in your
Zerin. Ether,
that's in
chapter
your
8.
record too, or is that so in the Book of Mormon there's that's the mountain.
Well, I hate to point this out to you, but actually, your little Book of Mormon is made off of our records. That's where the Book of Mormon came from. There's a
Uh,
whole syntax, a whole taxology that came from that point. And that is that if you read what Mormon and Moroni were saying
mm-hmm.
and how they went around to the native people, the friendly ones that they could get to,
Yeah, after
they
the
did
destruction, right?
they didn't explain the syntax. They just explained what they did. The syntax is that native tribes, nations, families, people, bands, however they want to be known, they have alpha tribes among them. This place is called Turtle Island for a reason. Turtle Island has different geometrical shapes on the back of the turtle. There are 4, 5, and 6-sided little geometric patterns on a turtle's back. Now you can put that
Yeah.
shell shape over this entire United States. It goes up into Canada and it goes way down into Central America before the tail.
So and
These
that's
tribes
oh go ahead.
had alpha tribes among them. We are one of the alpha tribes. An alpha tribe is charged with bringing things into existence and upholding traditions.
Okay.
So one of the traditions is to keep a record of all the happenings of the people, the nation, and everything around you,
Yeah.
and to keep that record. So in order for that to happen, you have to have scribes. You have to have records keepers.
Yeah.
You need to have all of the accoutrements to keep it secret.
Yeah.
And to keep that.
Oh, that makes Renell, we
So
can
in
actually
order for
see
that
and
to
hear
happen,
you.
you have to have scribes.
This is very promising.
You have to
So
have records
we just something is
keepers. You
echoing
have
back in. Is your
all of
headphones
the
plugged in?
to keep.
They are. Do you have us opened up on YouTube as well? Well, let me
I'm on
see.
the phone.
Yeah, I was just seeing. Okay, no, we can't hear myself anymore. That's good. There was just an echo. So, wait, Renell's here. This is great news.
You
Everybody,
made it.
what we have been waiting for, and, drum roll. And sorry I didn't
Sadly,
respond to you, Renell.
I
Are
think
you
it
trying?
has something to do with my computer.
Yeah, we need to look at that.
But I wanted to ask you, you were talking about that mountain. Now, is that in North America?
Yes, it is.
So that's an important key understanding that I learned just in the last 2 years. Archaeologists have found, and this is really critical to our understanding of where the Native American came from. They came from the north and went south. not the south, and went north. So it was long believed that Native Americans occupied South America and merged to the north, and that's incorrect. So it's fascinating. Your oral history is so rich in understanding all of the Native people, especially your tribe, is so huge in sound, vibration, records, oral history is so rich in your particular tribe and very sacred. I find that most of the sacred ceremonies, the two that are the most predominant is yours and the Hopi, as far as its relation to the Star People. The question I have is how many tribes in the North talk about the Star People?
Here in America, or like Canada, or
Mostly here, and probably North America and Canada.
most of the tribes do
Now, explain for us
talk about
laymen's. I have a little understanding, a little bit, but what are the Star People?
the people that come from the east and are they're very fair,
Okay.
and they bring knowledge and wisdom, but they have technology that we couldn't even begin to explain.
So does this tie into the? Oh wait.
Was this prior to Noah? Correct? Prior to the
Uh,
flood.
for them coming, they came, I don't know how many times. Um, there have been also some people, some beings that came from the stars that actually weren't all that good.
Interesting.
And they came um, anciently while our prophet was still alive. And they landed en masse all over the place. And
Wow.
people sent runners and said, "Hey, these beings that came are not that good." And that,
Oh, interesting.
that booklet that I gave my niece has a big story about that, about how they came, and
Is
I
that
tried
the
to condense
Kachinas?
it for um,
No,
Or
that's
for the book.
Hopi.
that's Hopi? Yes, I just don't know if it was part
Yeah,
of
for the Book of
multiple
Mormon
tribes.
evidence, I tried to condense that story because they were afraid of our blood.
Oh,
They did
interesting. Is that
they did not want
because of that
to.
Jewish blood?
They did not want anything to do with the blood of anything that was here, whether it's
Oh,
human
fascinating.
beings, animals, or anything. So that's the reason why blood red ochre was used when strangers came around.
Oh
We
my
rubbed it
goodness, that makes
all
sense.
over our body, and the parts that you could see, you made sure and rubbed it on your skin, men, women, and
Wow.
children. And when the Puritans came and landed on the beaches in the east, the natives broke out the ochre and rubbed it all over themselves
So
because they
and
knew
that was
if
in the
they were
1600s, right? Or
bad,
the
then they would be afraid of your blood.
Oh my.
And if they were good, then that wouldn't matter. So when they showed up, that's where we got the nickname the Red Man,
Oh, interesting. So
because of the ochre.
what's fascinating to me is when you look at petroglyphs and petroglyphs throughout the Grand Canyon, all of them seem to be in that red ochre,
Well, it depends on
carved
what
into that
time
red ochre.
the it's kind of like reading headlines.
Hmm.
I know we don't have
Wow.
newspapers anymore, but if you read headlines from today and then compare them with headlines in the 1800s,
Hmm.
it's totally different. It's more like a carnival atmosphere, we would think, in the 1800s. They love to
Really?
sensationalize
Oh
and,
yeah.
throw big headlines out there, this happened, that happened. And when you read the headlines today, they're more, calm. They're more scientific. They're more um, produced with pictures. And the petroglyphs are the same way. If you view them all the same, you're kind of, you're going down the wrong path. You need to
Right.
find out what time period that those were actually put on the rock.
And I would imagine location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a Neolithic time period that lasted for many centuries, and then it shifted to from symbology to more pictographs, and
Right.
then there was a mixture of both symbology and pictographs. And then at one point, there was a little bit of language that was introduced. So there are certain things that you see that it would just tell you what time of year it was, or the orientation of the moon and the sun,
What
and
I
nothing
love
else.
about what I love, and I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm so sorry. I have been thinking about this all day with you, Shawn. Do you remember that story you told me about how the archaeologists came out and they saw the four hunters or what they thought were hunters? And you said, no, I know the oral history behind that. Could you
Oh
explain
yeah,
that a little bit?
the six warriors that are carved on it looks like they're marching in a line, and they're carved on a cave wall. And it's if somebody unlearned were to look at it, they just say, well, it's six different warriors, and they're marching in a line. They're probably a war party, but it's not that at all. It's a tool we use for teaching our youth, and we point out each one of those um, the implements that are carried by those warriors, and then what style of headdress that they have on their head, and then what do they have in their other hand. They have a tool, or they have something that is used. So it doesn't matter if they have a bow and arrow, an axe, a hatchet, a spear, an atlatl. It's all different things. So those six warriors we explain, after we start teaching the youth, these six warriors are named, and each one of them has a name, and they have a duty, and they have a specific um, job to do in your life. And as you tread through um, this existence, this part of your life, um, here is what you need to know, and it will help you advance to the next stage of your life. So
So
those
much.
warriors are there are three main warriors, and the three main warriors are your intelligence, your spirit, and your moral center. And the ones that are behind them, like your spirit, there's a soul behind it. Your intelligence, there's a knowledge base behind it. Your moral center is literally your life force is behind it. And we point out each one of those in reference Like if you were in a massive accident and your mind was no longer there, your body would still exist. It would still, sometimes they put it on machines to make you breathe. Sometimes they, hook you up with all kinds of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and your body sits there and breathes and you still operate, but your mind isn't there. Your life force is actually there within your body. It's still making it work. The things that you came to this earth with, this line that we're on, that you tread your feet on, is actually the fourth world. The
Mm.
worlds that came before, the three worlds that came before, involve your intelligence and what our heavenly parents gave to us. And we took a while to go through that world. You couldn't just go as a little pinpoint of light of intelligence. You needed to actually learn. And in order to learn, you needed to remember. In order to remember, you need that knowledge base. So it took a while to get all of that to work together, to layer your intelligence in that knowledge base. And that took a whole world. And then you progressed to the next world
So,
and you built up. And as you built up, you were given a soul, and your
Mm.
knowledge base, your intelligence, all of that worked with your soul. You
Okay.
layered that around it.
Wow.
Then the next world you went to, you figured out, okay, let's work on this stuff. Well, you're given a spirit. You're given a form. You're given that which you can understand and learn and work with. So as you grow and progress through these worlds, and we don't know how long it took for all of us to go through that. But when we come here, you come with those things from the three worlds before. You come with that intelligence, that knowledge base. You come with a soul. You come with a spirit. This is the fourth world. So, what are we involved in making, wrapping around all of that? Your intelligence, right here. Your knowledge base on both sides. Your spirit fills your body. Your soul. We don't know how big a soul is. That's the reason why some people say with an aura, your soul goes out to there as far as your aura. We don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
But we do know that you're layered in something. When you're here, you're layered in a physical body. It's
yeah.
wrapped around your spirit, your soul, your intelligence, your knowledge base, everything that God gave you, everything our heavenly parents gave us. We're in the fourth world.
That,
We will go
Mm.
on. Our people say you will journey on, you will travel to the next world. You will take
Whoa.
your journey. We know that even beyond that world, there's another place because you can't stay there either. We're camped here. We will camp at the next, and then we will make our journey from that world to the next one. So we're
Wow.
going to be layered in different things, and there's a plan to all this. So some of these things were tapped into those symbology, the pictographs, the language, all of the artwork you see. And there's literally what I have learned. You go talk to anybody that lives next to any canyon here in Utah, anywhere along the Wasatch Front, and they'll tell you you cannot go up these canyons without
But that's big.
finding petroglyphs, without finding
They're in every
symbols.
canyon. Every
They're in
canyon.
every canyon, all over
I
the
ac-
place.
I
oh, yeah.
actually picked up a rock that's on the kitchen counter that is a petroglyph. Petroglyph. I mean, and there it was right on the ground.
Yep,
It's everywhere here.
yeah. And in order for them to do that, sometimes it takes years and years of effort to get up there and tap those things into the rocks. It doesn't happen, in one day. It's not like a typewriter or anything. You have to take the right tools. You have to take food with you. You have to take helpers. You have to make a camp. There's a plan that goes along with, okay, I'm going to do this and do that. Well, the only way that our ancestors said that you can do that is through love. If you have love for those people, the future people that will actually see what you are about to create, what you are about to tell them, what message you're about to leave. If your love for them is sufficient, then it will be done, even if it takes years.
Man.
So those messages are messages of love for not just Native people, but for everybody that sees them, even if you don't understand them. The effort that it takes to go up there and
Wow.
carve it into the rock, and
It's
then to come
beautiful.
down and say, okay, I did it. This is one of my things that what they call it, a bucket list now. They say, I can check that one off my bucket list. I've done it. I've left a message that will be here for hundreds of years. Of course, they don't.
Science blows me away. I mean, the multidimensional pictures, and they're everywhere. I mean, and I look at the
Mhm.
danger that a lot of them took to write that oral history on rock. It just blows me away.
Yeah.
Well,
It's so beautiful.
I mean, I will say that that your tradition and what that is, I can see what you're saying about where the book, where the Book of Mormon would have come from. Because I mean, the what you're just explaining is a plan of salvation. It's and I was gonna ask, what was it that converted you to
To
Christ,
Christianity.
and not just Christianity, but to Christ Himself? Where
Yeah.
in the line? Because I know that when you were with the community of Christ, they believe in Christ. So I don't know if that was if you believed with them, with the ones that were treating you horribly, but which is what we
Mhm.
talked about right before you got on, Renell. So how was that transition? Because I've read through the Book of Mormon many times, and the way you just explain things, it makes perfect. Like that's almost some of the sermons that are in there. And so that, I mean, just the symbolism matches up perfect. Like I can see it. That makes sense.
Well, some of the ancient Hopi, um, you know, I've read rocks for so many years. Hugh Nibley, we talked about this before, Shawn, spent a lot of time in teaching me how to transcribe. But it's literally taken my entire life and my old age to finally get to that place of that spiritual growth and those spiritual eyes. Even the stories of the visions that you told me you've had, I only saw one layer of it at the time. It's amazing how critical it is to see with your own personal growth and your spiritual growth why it's so deep, why it's so wide. These Native Americans that we occupied the land after um, have no understanding of like with you, Shawn, nobody knows how brilliant you are. Shawn is an amazing man. He's highly intelligent. He invented a certain engine, wasn't it, um, Shawn, that goes on aerospace engine?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I worked with. I actually worked with other inventors, but yeah, we made a lot of stuff. You made a
And
lot of peace.
that's just how the Native American, on the majority of them, um, have been. Is they use both hemispheres of their brain, both creative and intellectual. So that process that you just described is very much like the Hopi on the fourth world, and
Oh,
they're understanding as it as well. Now, I'm not painting a broad brush, but so many tribes were lost with chickenpox. So many tribes were lost through our own occupation, and what we brought. Um, are
oh
what
yeah. That
remains of the tribes that remain, are they very similar across the board in some of the sacred understandings?
yeah.
And I too
That
want to know where you shifted into knowing Christ.
Yeah.
when our prophet came to our people, it was written down. Um, our people just didn't want to, get out of the villages, didn't want to get out of the cities, didn't want to get out of the towns, all the little communities that we had. Um, there, it was like we had a system.
And did this happen
Uh,
2,000 years ago?
yeah, it was like, why would we want to do that? And the
Yeah.
prophet came to us and said, if you do not do this, then you will be wiped out.
Wow.
And he described really graphically, this is how it's going to be done. And when our people came out and said, okay, we'll live in a tent, we'll make teepees out of forest poles and buckskins and buffalo hide, and we will wear skins like the prophet said, and we'll go out and you know meet these people. In fact, that was the thing he told us to wonder about. And I don't mean wonder, I mean wander.
Wander.
Wow.
Wander the plains, wander after your protein source, wander and meet these people, because if you do not, you will be destroyed by disease before you even see one of them.
Wow.
So we have stories about, the people that didn't. They stayed in one place and all together. And when we went back to the villages, we found bones. Nothing but bones. It wiped out the whole people. And they never met any of the people that carried those diseases. It it came on the wind and in the water
Whoa.
and wiped them all out. And so they had to be burned. They had to be knocked down, the stuff. And there's stories written down from the oral histories about how that was done. And so when people encountered us and saw us wearing skins, living in teepees, hunting animals, they just assumed we had been that way since the Stone Age.
Which
And that
logically
was
makes some sense,
far
but
from the truth.
yeah, that's
When people that didn't speak our language brought us a book, and it was black, and they described the little book. It had thin pages, and we didn't call them pages, we called them leaflets. It was made of thin leaflets, and it was
what
bound
time period are you talking now?
in black. It's like when the Puritans
Okay, so
came,
1600s early to that
when
whole century.
yeah,
Oh, shoot.
right around the 1300s when they
Oh,
came,
okay.
and they
So
got wiped out. The natives went out and told them, don't camp, don't put anything permanent on these islands, and they did. And there was a hurricane that came north that year and just wiped them out. That's the reason why they never
My
found anything
goodness.
of them.
and
So
that I mean the Vikings, like for instance, came in the what 11 to
1300s.
1300s, and that they found some of that. So I mean, there's many that have come over the last thousands of
Oh
years.
yeah. When they met the people of
The
the South,
Phoenicians, a lot.
they met they met the people of the coast, and then when they came into the forest people where we were, that's where they stopped. The Vikings
Wow.
had to look up to us, literally, and they were like, "Our weapons are not. These aren't the Skraelings. These are somebody else." Because they met some very tall people. They met
Next
some
one.
warriors, and they knew they could not. They're like, we can't take these people as slaves. We can't
Wow.
we're just not going to be able to do what we want to do. So they turned around and left.
Wow.
So,
Now that's your tribe, right?
oh yeah,
Wow.
around 1,200 years ago, they said, having a 10-foot tall Cheyenne was normal,
Whoa.
was not out of the norm.
Wow.
10 foot.
So we weren't actually giants. We actually knew about giants. So,
How
but
interesting.
we were big people.
Wow.
Some of them said that we had actually um, kind of intermingled with what was left of the Jaredites,
Okay.
which we don't know about that, but it may be true, it might not be. I don't know. Only time will tell.
Yes, it
Now,
will.
what's interesting is here in Utah, because I used to have a nonprofit called Medicine Well, and we were in the conservation of Native American sites here in Utah. Um, and the one thing we came across were the snake people, the snake clan. And they too were
Mm-hmm.
very tall, very
Oh yeah.
sacred people by the Hopi,
Mm-hmm.
who did the same thing, left the Hopi land to wander. I really personally feel these are the same people who occupied the Grand Canyon.
They
But
might have been.
is that part of possibly your tribe as well? Or was that separate?
Uh, we we actually had names for a lot of those places. We had names for the towers in Monument Valley, and
Wow.
names for stuff all the way out to the west coast and way up north.
So you
Um,
knew
Wow.
your geography.
some of the books that we had, one of them I kind of got into when I was reading it, and it was just kind of blowing my mind. We have a prophecy about us being separated 4 times as a people.
Wow. Four
One of
times.
the times, one of the times that we got separated was when there was an ice sheet over the northern part of what is now the United States. It's
Right.
it's what the Great Lakes were made from.
Right.
But that ice sheet was a mile to a mile and a half thick,
Really?
above the land, and it stretched from ocean to ocean. So it went from Pacific to Atlantic. The only way to get over it, because we knew there was land on the other side, because we had people there, and it would take weeks to walk across it. You'd have to camp on top of the ice. And one
Holy cow, that
time
story's true then.
there was a massive earthquake, and it created a Grand Canyon right from east to west down the middle of that ice sheet. And there was no way to cross back and forth. And part of our people were trapped on the north side of that. When it had an earthquake, there were people on top of it, and some of them died because they got sucked into the big Grand Canyon of ice. Well,
Wow.
they met at a point where they could hear each other holler. across. And they told, one part of our people said, you go down on that side and live, and we'll go down on this side and live. And when Creator wills it, we'll come back together again someday. It took about 300 years. In the book, it says between 300 and 400 years. For our people, there was not enough remnant of ice keep it going back and forth. So we got a big chunk of our people to go back up north and go back to our honey grounds. So when they went back up north, they found there was a mass of people that were already there. And they said between, this lake and this river and back towards this forest is all ours. And you guys need to get off. And they said, no, let's have a war and decide who gets to keep it. Well, after doing their signings, they all got ready for war. And when they were hollering at their troops on either side, we were speaking the same language. So they asked for the leaders to come out into the middle, and they were like, hey, you're the guys we left. And they were like, you are the guys that left and went south. And they were like, we're the same people. And they were like, yeah, we are. So they put down their weapons and decided to have a feast instead and swap stories and everything. So we came back together, and that was just one of the great separations that
was that
happened.
The first?
Well, what happened was, and this is the really weird part of the story, and I had to wrap my mind around it. The people of the North, when they went on the other side of the ice sheet, they were used to going and hunting and then bringing stuff back. Well, they had to live there. So as they went north, they said, you're not going to believe what we found. We found a place that had all 4 seasons.
What?
In the north.
In the north?
North of the ice sheet.
It was north of Canada.
Wow.
So we asked them, where's this place, and how do you get to it?
Okay.
They said it can only be reached at a certain time of year when the moon is in a certain phase during its progression. So once you go to the north, to find that when the moon is in a certain phase, it has to be full. And most of the people don't know that we knew that its progression was an 18-year progression across the sky. So it reaches lunar maximum at a certain point, and then it reaches lunar minimum at a certain point. Well, when it's full and it's during a certain time of year as the Earth rotates around the sun, the top of the Earth will open up. And
wow.
And this is in your
I
book.
get it. This is what Admiral Byrd was talking about.
Well, our people went down inside, and they found a place with all 4 seasons.
Oh, my.
So when they came back out and they encountered us, they related the story and said, guess what? We know that place, and we know how to get there. And they wrote it down.
That's the inner Earth?
Yeah. It has its own light source.
So it has
all 4 seasons.
That's in your records that you're talking about.
Yes. That was that was just one of our separations.
Do you know about what year? Like in the past, like how far back we talking? Like that separation.
It wouldn't matter. It's every time there is that shift.
Well, no, it's
like
not
Admiral
about...
Byrd was in that plane and poop, he flew right into it.
Well,
it would have had to be in the middle of the Ice Age.
Okay.
That happened somewhere up there. When I asked the professors at OU, they they said it had to be about 9,000 to 11,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah,
That it was
that's
created.
And then he said, the amount of ice that would have had to create that big of an ice sheet. I said, yeah,
Wow.
our people wrote that down. They said it had to start snowing one day and not stop for 100 years.
Huh. I
so
think that.
That's
What do you think that
that's what
might
made
be?
the
The
ice
polar
sheet.
shift that
So
created the change?
well,
I don't know.
I will say
That's
this.
that's where the melt came from
Okay, it
that
is a polar shift.
created a lot of the features that are out here in the West.
Yeah, like
Wow.
if you look up in starting in Oregon, going all the way down to the Grand Canyon, it was all created. They've learned recently very quickly. So, I mean,
Well,
in comparison to like what they originally thought, it was eroded over thousands, millions of years. No, it
So
was all.
much that the Wasatch Mountains, Sean, wasn't on one side, and they said it was all the way to almost um, California. The mountains there, the Sierra Nevada. Between them was a very large river
oh
of
yeah.
fresh water running through into the Grand Canyon.
If you go up to the where the Nez Perce, Blackfoot,
Yeah,
and
Montana.
the Salmon, um, there's the Arikara and the Shoshone. They have stories about how there were two Great Lakes out here
Wow.
in the West. One of them covered the area of about 3.5 states of our
Oh
United
my
States.
word.
The other one covered about an area of about 4 states. And
Those are Great Lakes.
between them, there was a narrow neck.
I've heard this before.
And
Yeah, you have. I've told Doc.
there's a book that's written about it. And if you go up there to where Fort Hall is,
Uh huh.
just off the highway, they've got a little smoke shop casino thing. To the south of
Okay.
that, they've got a little bookstore. And there's a
Really?
book written in there from their tribes that has this story in it about how a volcano went off up in the Northwest and blocked one of their major rivers. And it created that huge 4 state lake. And it wasn't the ice that was pushing down. The scientists finally figured it out. It was the water that pushed the land down.
Wow.
When the ice melted, it flowed between those two and made another lake out here in the West that covered an area of about 3.5 states of our states. And those lakes were very close to each other, but they were not connected other than that little waterway and the narrow neck that went between them.
Huh.
When they dated those, they found out that those lakes actually existed up until a little bit before and during the Book of Mormon times
Wow.
when they started. So when you read that Hagoth built a ship and then set sail on the water, he went and then he came back and he said, we need more goods and more people. And he got on the water again and took off. He wasn't on the Pacific Ocean. He was on one of those massive lakes.
I've
And
heard
then
that.
when he got where he was going, that's when he moved those boats all the way out into the ocean, and then he really took off. But
That's
those
how I
lakes,
heard the Norwegians came here, the Vikings. They thought that they were on the ocean, and they weren't. They were stuck on this very large lake.
yeah.
And they kept going
Well,
east thinking they were on the Atlantic, and they weren't.
if you look at those old maps and see that California used to be on the other
An
side of a
island.
big long lake,
Yeah.
the the Fertile Valley used to be just a big lake.
Wow.
Well, the water that came from the ice is what it broke all at once, came down through that lake and drained the lake at the same time to the south and created a lot of that Grand Canyon feature.
Yeah.
It
That
it killed everybody in its wake, but it got out to the ocean.
and it would have carried everything with it.
Yep.
It's
So,
fascinating to me. I just learned that this year. And do you know how it was? You know the dam that's falling apart in Parowan? So there's an old ancient Native American dam before they put, yeah, so you know about it. They drained it, and when they drained it, they found this out that oral
oh yeah,
history was absolutely correct.
In what
the
way? How did they? What they find?
After they got past the ancient silt, they were able to prove that there was a massive movement of water that happened all at once, and that this whole
Okay.
Great Basin area was completely a huge lake, like
mhm.
Shawn was saying.
Yeah. Okay.
One
That
lake was
Well,
brackish, the other one was fresh water, and in order to just even be able to fish, they had to part off part of that and dam it so they could catch fish because the water was moving way too fast.
the northern lake was a saltwater body, and the southern lake was more of a freshwater. And the only two remnants you see of that now are Utah Lake and the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah, you've got the bench, and you can see that bench.
Yep. So those are the
so
only things that are left.
the
But
audience has a few questions. I'm not trying to interrupt, but I
No,
wanted to
that's
ask.
okay.
So Jessica asks, this is of the civilization where the land would open, right? Um, and so, what type of people or beings lived there? That's her question.
uh,
According to
from
your oral, to your history.
yeah, according to the oral history, it was just other human beings. Um, they described things that would come and go, like points of light, beams of light, that kind of thing. But there were mostly human beings that lived there. And they did say there were some giants that were here and there, but they were all friendly and they welcomed him. And when they came back, when our people were having their kind of friendly discussions, um, they said, "Hey, guess what we found out? We found this way, and we're going to bring it to you." The people that came back to us are named Suttai people. The Suttai came from the north, came out of that north land. And when they came back, they said, "This is the way that we found." And they introduced it to Chachistas. And Chachistas and Suttai became one again as far as all of our bands and everything. But what they brought to us was the Sundance.
The
They
sun.
brought the Sundance and it's everything that came with it. So that's kind of,
So
when
the
they brought it
way.
back, yeah, they found the way, and it was like a religious way of living
Yeah.
and a religious way of doing things. So when they brought it back to us, um, it flowed from the Chichistas, brought it south, and then gave it to all of our ally tribes, and then it just went from there. So it's kind of different in different tribes
Hmm.
because he was told you make it your own. So it's not
I
exactly the
see.
same within each tribe.
Well, God tends to teach in the language that you know, in what how you communicate because we're not on His level. So uh, that that's so
Well, the
fascinating.
the prophet that came to us actually wasn't one of our people. He was
Wow.
raised among us, but his mother was one of the tribes, and his she used to go out into the fields, the northern plains, and lay in the prairie grass and watch the clouds. She would sing songs, and the way the story goes, one day she was out there laying, looking at the clouds, and it was a nice spring or summer day, and a face appeared in the clouds,
Oh,
and he introduced himself as one of the thunder people. And he said, as a sky person, I've liked your songs. He said, I like the way you look. Would you like to come up here with us? She said, yeah, I'd like to come up there. Can I come back? And he said, yeah, sure. Okay. So he brought her up to the sky people, up to his thunder clan, and introduced her, and they got along good. And next thing you know, she got pregnant, and she wanted to go home. So she took a lot of their bed sheets, gathered all a bunch of them up. She made a hole in the clouds and put the sheets, and she made like rope and whatever. And she got as much as she could, and she lowered it all the way down. And she started to go down, and she got down to about 50 feet above the earth, and she was out. She was out of stuff. She was like, "Oh no,
oh no.
can't go back up. I'm too heavy." She was pregnant,
Wow.
so she said a prayer. She said, "Whatever, whatever happens, you know, it's whatever happens." So she let go, and when she hit, the child was born, and it killed her, according to the oral history.
Wow.
And there was this old couple that was from our tribe, the Chichistas, and they were traveling with your boy and their dog, and they heard a baby crying, and the dog went
Oh
over there
my.
and sniffed, and the old people, they cut the cord, they wrapped the baby up, and the face appeared in the clouds and gave them instructions and said, I am this little baby's father, and you know do me a favor and bury this woman that I loved and raise this child. She wanted to go home, so maybe there's a reason. And he instructed, he said, whoever raises this child must never be struck. This child must never be hit. So the old couple went into camp with this baby, and they were like, guess what? And they were like, hey, you guys are too old. How did you have a baby? They told them the story. We found this baby in this woman,
I just
and
found. I don't know. Oh, found it.
there's nothing we could do. The father was from up there, and she was from down here, and we need somebody to raise this baby. So they took a young couple, and the young couple raised the child, and they said the thunder beings would come and they would watch this little boy. Anyway, to make a
And
long story
never to
short,
be struck even if you
He
stand on a wall and get shot at.
he he became the prophet called sweet medicine.
Sweet
He
medicine. Wow.
he lived for 444 years among our people. Did a lot of amazing stuff, but he wasn't that tall. They said he stood about 4'5", is as tall as he was. He
Wow.
wasn't that tall at all. So anyway, this is a big long story, but he's the one that brought our covenant. He went on top of the mountain. Um, he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights.
This sounds like the
He,
Savior.
he left a prophecy that he said, you're to look for this man, and he will come, and he will find the golden seed, and he will
The golden
plant
what is that?
the golden seed.
Seed.
Turned out to be the golden plates.
Oh
Okay.
my
So
word.
the guys looked for it. He didn't know his name. So the medicine men viewed him in vision, and all they saw was his clothes up around his neck. They saw his fingertips, and they couldn't see his feet. He was all
Wow.
sewed up into something. They viewed his clothes. They said it looks kind of like ours, but it's really fine. So he's all sewed up in that.
Wow.
Well, they said, okay, we will call him All Sewed Up Man, and we will look for him. So they looked for All
Interesting.
Sewed Up Man, and All Sewed Up Man came, and he pulled the golden seed out of the hillside of the Records Cave that was lost because of battles. The Oneida people, their name means keepers of the hill. And
Elkamora.
when they were asked, what hill did you keep? And all of them put their head down. They said, we lost our hill. We don't know which one the records are in, and we lost it. So we joined the covenant chain so that we could still have records.
Mm.
So they told the story about how that records cave was lost in the hill Cumorah,
Okay.
and about
Wow.
how their name, Oneida,
Oh,
means
I
keepers
get it.
of the hill. When the prophet came to us and told us, you will look for All Sewed Up Man, and he will have the way. He will have the direction for the next path. Well, I didn't know it then as a kid, but when I came to my people, I sat down and they said, we knew your grandfather. These old men, these old chiefs, one of them got up and he said, I'm your uncle. And I live in Lame Deer, Montana.
Wow.
He said, we're that closely related. It is he named it the third separation of our people. The United States government made a Northern Cheyenne and a Southern Cheyenne,
Mm.
separated our people. We were only prophesied to be separated through time one last time, 4 times, and 4 times only. So this is the third. The second one was the big one. That's the one I couldn't wrap my mind around. They went into the earth. That was why.
Inner Earth. Wow.
Well, guess what? Our encampment, traditional encampment, these old men sat me down in the middle of them. They said, you know, you're one of the last of the full bloods. They said, we know your family. We know your bloodlines. They said, take a look at this big camp with these thousands of people in it. These are your people and visitors and married ins and everything. They said, we look at all of us old guys, gray braids. They said, every single one of us is a baptized Mormon.
Really?
He said, you will be hard pressed to find somebody with gray hair here in these that are our people that are not a baptized Mormon.
My word.
So I was like, okay, all the generation that has gray hair that's here are Mormon. And he's like, yeah.
And what about
My
that
word.
generations after that?
He
Like
was the head
the
poobah. He said, I'm a Mormon. My father was a Mormon. My grandfather was a Mormon. And he was the keeper of the sacred covenant.
Wow.
He said, guess what? We know it's true. A lot of that generation never spoke a word of English. My grandparents didn't speak English. They spoke Cheyenne, and they had interpreters.
Really?
Well, when they knew, they said, we know it's true because our prophet told us 1,600 years ago. It came out that what will be planted by the golden seed will be good fruit, and it will grow from those people, and by their fruits you shall know them. And
Holy
their
cow.
prosperity will be the salt covenant. The salt covenant is made with Creator. The salt covenant is a land given that is promised to those people who are righteous and who have righteous endeavors. The salt covenant will never be broken unless the people break it themselves. It means that the Lord will prosper the land so that the land of milk and honey can flow from it.
Oh my.
That's what he promised Jacob. The land of
Wow.
milk and honey does not mean cow's milk or
No.
bees' honey. It doesn't mean that. What it
Right.
means is a land that's prosperous enough in God's word and people to send out missionaries to every corner of the world. The
Wow.
milk is carried by the brethren, milk before meat. Scriptures that you need to understand before you're given doctrine. The honey is the sisters that go out carrying God's word. Scripture, the sweetness of the word, can be shared by the sisters. So a land flowing with milk and honey means a covenant people, a righteous people, a people that are prosperous enough by God's own hand to send out missionaries everywhere carrying his word and fulfilling ancient prophecy. And the prophecy for us is prophecy. On his side, it's what he promises us as his children.
yeah.
If you will understand his words and his promise to you, you can know happiness, you can know true joy. And that's what the gospel does. So
It
I had
does,
no
doesn't it?
problem converting to it.
Yeah.
I knew it was true. When I was living in Oklahoma, there was an argument that started over the Oklahoma Temple. Right next to my ward in
Oh,
Yukon, Oklahoma, there was a softball field. And the brethren came down with apostles in 70s. And they said, we would like to have your softball field. We're going to put a temple on it.
oh my.
It will be the only temple in Oklahoma. Well, up until that time.
now,
So in
now.
Oklahoma City, the people of Tulsa came up, who are way more wealthier, by the way more numerous. They said, hey, what's what's the deal with them getting the temple? We have 3 times the amount of active members in Tulsa.
3 times.
What's going on? The 70s told them, we're going to inquire about that and we will get back with you. Well, a year later, they came back. They said, we have an answer for you. According to church and the way the church works, you have to have a base of 20,000 active members in order to get a temple. But, and here's the real kicker. They said the membership itself can count. Well, they said, well, we have 3 point some odd, almost 3.5 times the people. We've got 60,000 members up here in the Tulsa area. Well, they said we counted up all the members. There's a little over 14,000 in the Oklahoma City area. But you did not account for the 3 stakes of native tribal members that are in the West. The Chechistas, the Cheyenne.
Oh, my goodness.
You didn't account for that membership. Those generations, they're 5th and 6th generation Mormons, passing down that they know that it's true, because part of it came from their own records cave.
My.
So the Oklahoma City Temple, they said, guess what? The street that it's built on, right in front of the chapel, to the west, all the way to the Texas state line, is the Chechistas and Honetanai service area.
What's
Cheyenne
the
and Arapaho.
or what that the second word you said?
Arapaho.
Arapaho. Okay, gotcha.
That's their name.
Yeah.
That's their name. Honetanai.
So we changed our names. We changed.
You put our history aside.
Yeah.
And you changed our names.
That's terrible.
Just like the Cherokee song says. Cherokee Nation.
Yeah.
Made us wear your clothes, you cut our hair, made us go to your schools, learn your history.
Tried to change all the languages.
Yeah. I got my tongue washed with soap whenever I would speak Cheyenne.
No way.
Yeah. I was one of the ones.
You gotta be kidding, Shawn. Really? Not that long ago.
Yeah. That's not that long ago.
Yeah, it was. We talked about it right before you came on.
We were forbidden to write in our language.
Yeah,
it's one of
not
the
even right.
Right now,
holy cow!
I'm wearing that's Cheyenne, and that's Arapaho in our native language.
So Arapaho. Was that the group that came back together with you? Like,
no,
from the north? Or is it just separate story?
I need to say this. Did Shawn tell you how tall he is?
No.
Because we were talking about how tall they were. Shawn, how tall are you? Of course, you have to take a couple inches off.
Even in my old age, I'm 6'5".
Oh. Wow.
6'5".
And that's consistent.
So that would be 6'7" when you were.
Oh,
but he's very tall.
I have nephews that are over 7 foot tall.
Oh.
No kidding.
So I mean, when you look at the way that height changes in a society over time, that's completely believable that you could have 10-foot people. Like
that's amazing.
We just keep shrinking essentially.
Oh yeah.
So wow.
you put all the puzzle pieces together, and then it starts, making the picture. And
I
people are
really, 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 really
struggling.
want to get that record.
What
They're
I'd like to do is
struggling.
have Shawn. Shawn, can you come back and do another show with us?
Sure.
Because yeah, we
I
have a
would
lot.
really love that.
Yeah. Because I mean,
I'm sure.
Go ahead. Sorry, Renell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would love to spread the word. Please like and subscribe. Please tell your friends and family so that we can have another moment with Shawn. Because one thing I wanted to go over with you, Shawn, as well, is I heard you speak once about symbolism and the power of the word and symbolism. And that changed my life. Because I had a near death experience, what Shawn was teaching was directly from what I was taught on the other side.
That's beautiful. I will say, like, symbolism is so rich, and when you were talking, just when you say puzzle pieces, they were clicking, and I am like, that is amazing, and that yeah. So we have a few questions from the audience.
Okay.
May we ask?
We
Okay.
may probably, because we're running out of time, maybe one question. So which one would you like to choose?
There's actually only two, so this shouldn't
Okay.
take long.
All right.
Do you think that the water levels and poles will drastically shift in our lifetimes?
Yep. That's my, sorry, Shawn.
Oh yeah, it's already starting to happen.
Yep. The pole shift's happening.
And
Look at, we got
prophecies
snow today.
are happening faster. The Euphrates River drying up, that
Was a
was
huge
just,
sign.
Yeah.
that was a huge sign, but it was only part of that prophecy.
You got to have
There's,
stuff come out of it now.
yeah, they're finding
Well, look at
caves
Saudi
underwater,
Arabia.
all
Oh,
kinds of
Wow.
stuff.
wow. And then the last question. Go ahead, please.
One of the reasons why an Islamic person came out and was talking to a rabbi, and they said, the reason why the 6-Day War happened. The reason why the 6-Day War happened is because of the red heifer.
Yep.
Because they were going to do the red heifer sacrifice.
That's what
And
originally
so,
sparked it.
yeah,
Out of all the things I've read, I cannot believe
Over
I
the
haven't read that.
Passover.
Yeah, I knew it
yeah,
was the Passover.
and
I didn't
guess what
know
they're
they had
doing
a.
again?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was there when, before they sent the red heifers back. So I met the rabbi who was in charge of rebuilding that temple on the Temple Mount. And,
Mhm.
and I was worried back then. And the preacher who took the heifers from his farm to breed them so that they could be beef, because at the time Israel had no real meat from cows. They had water buffalo, but that's different. And so he breeded this heifer not only to be able to sacrifice when it was time. He took two breeds and made it strong enough so that the people in Israel could have cattle on their land, withstand the heat and withstand all the weather changes. So I remember when that started, and look how fast that happened, Shawn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last
Look
question.
how quick.
Yeah, yeah. Were the people in the North Native American tribes or like Viking type people? That yeah. Go ahead. I'll let you answer.
No, from what the records say, they were a whole different origin of people.
And they kept to themselves.
Yeah, they weren't afraid, but they were used to being inside the earth.
Hmm.
As far as the records say, they were their own people. They didn't come out.
That
So,
is
but they
fascinating.
knew about the surface people. They knew about the outside world. That was the difference.
Yeah,
We
Wow.
don't know about the inside world, but they know about the outside world. So,
Isn't that so interesting?
because they took
That's why I
records
don't
with them.
believe in aliens. I'm sorry, I just don't. I think what we're seeing as aliens is very evil. But we'll talk about that another time. But I hope that answered the questions. Did
Yeah,
that
all
answer it for
that
them?
did. All the questions have been answered, and I think that this was great. The time flew by for me, and I would like to either talk to you offline or figure something out. I'll come photocopy stuff because
No,
I'm
what we
very
need to do is work with Shawn to get them into a book. And I know that he thought about doing that at one time. Shawn, let us help you so that our audience can, if they choose, be able to read it as well. Would that be possible?
oh yeah, I went so far
Great.
as to marry a writer. I was married to her for almost 2 years before I figured out she didn't want to write the book. So we're not together anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that, Shawn.
and
I'm
that
so
ended
sorry.
that thing.
Yeah, it's been 4 years now,
4
and
years, really?
I've been on my own. So I'm doing good. I'm doing great. The cancer that I had is gone. They surgically removed it, and
That's good.
I bounced back. So I'm doing good.
Well,
Wow. Salute to
there's
you, Shawn.
yeah, for real. There's a reason why you're with many of our guests that have come on. There's a reason why I'm meeting you and why we're here, and that might be one of the reasons. Because yeah, I have a drive in me that I really feel I need to look at this stuff and
So we
take
will
care of it.
do that because Shawn and I want to go on some tours. If anyone has any interest of some of these areas, because I know a couple myself, Shawn, but I would, Julius Chavez. Do you know him?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was the shaman for the Hopi and the Navajo, and he died of COVID. And
Oh,
he was the last stick carrier.
I
The
knew
last,
there was
but
a
he took me
medicine
to a
man.
different site.
Yeah, there was a medicine man from down there. I think he lived in Oribe,
Yes,
but
he did.
yeah,
That was Julius. That was
yeah,
him. But he took me to
and
quite a few sites and taught me quite a bit. And I
yeah, I
would
saw
love,
him at the Salt Lake Trading Post, and he
yes.
told me his about his son, and I actually met his son out on at a gathering.
We've talked about
So
that trading store in a previous episode or whatnot, Renell. Like that's where he hung out, right? That's he took
Well,
care of that
no,
place.
yeah, he was the manager
Okay,
of the trading
yeah,
post. In
okay,
fact, when you
same
go
guy.
into the trading post, there's a picture, a large picture of him now, in tribute to him. And I just recently learned he passed from COVID.
Yeah,
yeah,
But the nephew, it actually was his nephew, and his nephew passed away as well. So, yeah, there's no one to carry the sticks and the bundle. So a lot is changing, isn't it?
yeah.
Very fast.
It's kind of interesting.
Kind of fascinating. And I really want people to spread the word because I want to have Shawn back on online, and the only way we can do this is with your help. to like and subscribe, to hit the bell so that we can notify you as to what guests are coming and when.
Yeah.
So we need your help to become this larger family so that we can notify you and so that we can grow this channel. I feel if anything we can teach from this channel, there is life after this. There is a savior. This is a conversion time. I think there's going to be a very huge spiritual revolution that goes on. And we need you. We need all religions to step
Sure as
forward
hell need
now.
it. Yeah.
Never like ever in the history, Shawn, has Christianity, you know that prophecy that said that Christians would die in mass numbers and would be systematically destroyed? Well, that's happened already. We're in the midst of it now.
Yeah.
And so, we have to open our arms in our larger family to all Christians and all believers of Jesus Christ. And we need to spread also the word about the Old Testament.
He is the way.
And the New Testament. But I want so desperately to be able to see you again, Shawn, and go for a drive and talk.
Oh, yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Shawn is also an incredible drum maker.
Oh,
did you talk about that?
We did not. So this is perfect time to talk about it.
Well, we'll save it for next time. Does that sound good, Shawn?
Well, he makes
are
great
you
drums.
Gonna sell
At
them?
least say that.
Do you still make drums?
Oh, I'm going to do a project. I don't know if I guess I can say, but I'm doing a project for the state of Utah involving a drum.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So, yeah. I'm just setting it up, but I've got some people who are kind of backing me, and yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
exciting. Well, I think the best way is to get a book for you. How's that sound, Shawn? So that we can get the word spread. Because I think, you and I are getting older there.
Oh, yeah.
You need the newer generation to absorb some of this stuff.
Right. So bring your kids, bring your family.
I was talking about me, but yeah.
Oh, I see. Well,
I am one generation down. My kids are another generation. So yeah.
So I would love to see you again, Shawn, very soon. Maybe in the next. We have a guest for next week, but for anybody who would like to listen in, a gentleman who's had a near-death experience, totally non-believer in life after death or Christianity, and was changed by his experience. Yeah. So please let your family know about it, your friends, and hopefully the week after that, Shawn, I would love to have you back on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would that be possible?
Sounds good.
And are you okay if I text you offline? And we can. I'd like to ask you some questions about that stuff.
Yeah.
And we will leave Shawn Littlebear's email address below for anyone who would like to participate in Shawn's projects and support his efforts. Please, like I said, like and subscribe. Our channel needs to grow because financially, we too, both, Mike and myself, need an income desperately.
That is true. Yeah, but it's the word that I really care about. That's
I do
that's
too.
My heart. Yeah, you're too. I know you. I just wanted to make sure everyone heard that from us.
Knows that, right?
The word, and we're trying to reach people that have been that are missed, that don't get seen in the standard places. We want to really reach out to people So
Well, I'd like to design a Native American T-shirt merch to raise money for Shawn. Does that sound good, Shawn?
he
Is he
stepped
still
away for a
there?
second. He said something. Maybe someone was at the door,
Ah,
or something along those
so
lines. So this is a good time to probably
we'll
end.
have a T-shirt, and we'll advertise it next week. What we decide to do, and what Shawn would. I think it would be wonderful to keep it simple. Maybe just those 6 symbols, and put it on a T-shirt. I'm ready
Sounds
for
good.
the fifth
In it,
word, fifth world, or
in a circle
we'll think of something.
with the titles of what each one represents, so that people can actually understand
Hmm.
it. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's talk offline
We were
and
talking about doing a merch with you, Shawn, a T-shirt.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. So, guys, we will see you on the other side.
we will see you on the other side. Mike and Renell and Shawn out.